Hello, I'm Chris, the Tabletop Fox, and welcome to my video on Halo Flashpoint, particularly the UNSC faction and reviewing their units and how they are in Season 1. So today, rather than starting out with any particular units, I'm going to just do a general overview of Spartans in general at the current state of the game in Season 1. So, Spartans came into the game as the main unit, the only really unit, other than the sneaky elites that snuck into that Spartan edition. And they set a baseline, and that baseline being mainly a 2-3 movement, a 4-5 in either of their shoot or fight stats with some variants, a 5 up on save, 2 armor, and 2 shields. And they generally had this, you can do decently at everything, with some of them being a bit more specialised. But overall, it was a solid baseline. And it's what we've come to see, somewhat unfortunately, as the actual base of what a unit should be, to the detriment of slow-moving units that came in later, like ODSTs and Brutes. And also, in some cases, some of the Spartans, where we've had the difference in units where we do have stuff like the Deadeye and the Brawler, which have a 3 up in their main stat and then 5 up in their weaker stat. You have the balance of the things like the Mark 7, which is good at both. You then do have other units that are more specialised to shooting but they only have a 4 up. You're talking about the Gunganir, the Zvezda. And then we go into some units that have got some more tankiness, like the JFO and the CQB with 3 armor, and the Zvezda as well with a 4 up save. Then you have the Grandpas, which is again the CQB and the Zvezda, where they have only a base 1 movement. And when I get into the units in themselves, we'll see how that has been seen as a problem, just because of how objectives like movement. However, generally, Spartans are a very solid team to use. They're also very easy to use, which is why they're so prevalent. So the Banished are strong, for an example, but they are difficult to use. Spartans are strong and easy to use. So as a new player picking up, going for Spartans is a good choice to getting you used to the game. In Season 0, we saw, well, because there was no ODSTs, it was pure Spartans for UNSC, and we would see 4-man Spartan teams. In Season 1, that's less so now, because of the point hikes on a lot of Spartans, along with wanting that more lethality and less going for objectives. So having extra weapons, pick up weapons, is a much better idea now, because you want the lethality. And so yeah, we have 3-man Spartan teams tend to be, or we usually have 2-man Spartan teams with 2 ODSTs as a popular combo as well. And what that is ODSTs has taken up the mantle of things like the Hazop from last season, where they're filling in the cheat points, where they don't need much added to them, so that the Spartans, who are a bit more expensive, can have their items given to them. So generally, if you're new to the game, running Spartans, very good. The orders they get, Snapshot is incredibly strong. It's not taken as much now, mainly because of Hot Drop being taken a lot more, and it's going up to 5 points. However, I believe Season 1 melee is even better than it was in Season 0, because melee tend to be more lethal. It was only really the hammer that added utility and that wasn't lethality. But melee is just a really good tool to have, so Snapshot is still a very strong denial tool to that. You have Return to Sender, which doesn't get taken as much. Main reason for that is it only affects grenades, it doesn't affect grenade launcher grenades. If it affected grenade launcher grenades, it would be seen a lot, I believe, because again, 2 5-up saves on most Spartans, or 4 up on Zvezda. Zvezda would be very good with it. Chief would be is insane with it. But that ability to go, not just, I'm not getting pinned, you're getting pinned, by throwing it back at them, ending their activation, is incredible ability. And if we see Banished teams come out a lot more and suddenly become a bit more of a meta choice, then Return to Sender can suddenly become an insane pick, because if you have Snapshot and Return to Sender and you're against a elite team and you're pure Spartans, or even the brutes in there, these are enemies that love the charge and love the throw grenades. So you can shut them down really hard. If you run a chief with Snapshot and Return to Sender, you're not going to have much in your list, but if they do anything to chief, they're in trouble, because they can't pin him anyway, so that you can always Snapshot. It's such a beautiful combo, but it does take a fair bit of investment, and you need those special order dice, which can be difficult, but Spartans do have a lot of options when it comes to tactician, and their tactician models are some of their stronger models anyway. So it makes for a really good combo there if you use stuff that needs, well, orders dice. So with Spartans, there are some weaknesses to them, and that is, one is their cost. It means that if you want to run a really strong Spartan team, you're cutting on your numbers, and that can be its own detriment, because letting the opponent go last on some modes can be very bad for you, because they can come in and last minute clear off, so you sometimes have to then doubly commit to, say, holding a King of the Hill point, which then sets you up poorly for the next round. Or you don't have the equipment to quite deal with everything. So the points cost of Spartans can be a bit of a detriment. However, the ODSTs have helped that out with them coming anything. The other thing with Spartans is they're quite easy for a good player to play against, and that is because Spartans are quite one-dimensional. They don't have much in the way of tricks of the trade, special abilities that make them hard to get around. It's very much, they do this, they do it well, and they're good at what they do, but there's nothing like Hot Drop where it's, oh, I need to watch out because if they come down somewhere they could really suddenly screw me here. It's not the elites with their reinforcements where, like, if I kill them they might come back this round and absolutely screw me. So it's more of a, if I charge them I might have to pin them first to not be Snapshot, and generally they're just knowing that they're very good at doing what they do and they're hard to fully shut down. But again, very one-dimensional, which makes them a lot easier to play against, which is why a good player can go into a regular Spartan team can actually sometimes shut it down if they've got something special going on with their list. So in general, Spartans, great units to run, great team to run, very easy to run. It's going to be a generally easy team to run, so if you're new you won't have too many problems with running it, and it's one of those ones where it's easy to learn, semi-easy to master, and as I said, that is where the one-dimensional comes in, is there's not as much gimmickiness to them that lets you go above and beyond, and that is where you then start adding in variety with ODSTs and such, or trying out the Banished, because they are both harder to learn and much harder to master, but the reward you get for that is much stronger. In general, Spartans, great. I recommend using them, especially if you're new. They'll do what they say on the tin, and they'll do it well. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was just getting a general idea of the Spartans out first, before I start touching on all the Spartan units individually, to which we will start with the Mark 7 first, and make our way through chronologically, probably finishing though with Chief, just have that big boy at the end. And if there's anything else you think I've touched on in this incorrectly, or you have a different opinion, or if there's anything you think I've missed, do feel free to let me know. But in the meantime, have a lovely day. I've been the Tabletop Fox. Ta-ra.